Ky'Andrea walked into the courtroom with confidence. She thought she'd be going home. Her lawyer had given her hope. The mother was praying and ready to take home her daughter. When the judge began to speak, Ky'Andrea smiled nervously, waiting to hear good news. But what came next shattered her world. The sentence came hard and everything changed. The mother wailed uncontrollably. Ky'Andrea's face froze. The young lady who was so sure she'd be going back to a free life had just received a 20-year jail term. On June 27, 2017, Circuit Judge Matthew Foxman sentenced her to 20 years in prison. Her mother dropped to the floor of the courtroom and wailed. The howls of grief were so loud that the judge had to later restate the sentencing for the clerk. Ky'Andrea broke down, begging to go home. This moment became one of the most emotional courtroom breakdowns caught on camera, a video that would be viewed millions of times around the world. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe as we go in to tell you the full story of the crime that got her to court. Ky'Andrea Cook and her then-boyfriend, Kendrick Bass, formulated a plan for carjacking. She would lure strangers she met online through various dating and social media apps to remote places, and he would ambush them with a gun and steal their vehicles. In March 2017, when she was 17 years old, Cook used the Meet Me social app to draw Perry Nita from Palm Coast to South Daytona. She worked at Long John Silver's restaurant, and that's where they arranged to meet on March 22nd. Nita expected to sell her some marijuana, and then they would have sex. However, Nita brought along his friend, Emmanuel Manny Purcell, who was only 17 years old. What Nita and Purcell didn't know was that Kendrick Bass was waiting nearby, ready to rob them. During the attempted carjacking, Bass ended up shooting and seriously injuring Purcell. The judge would later say he considered it a miracle that Purcell survived. The young man had been shot during what was supposed to be a simple meet, but the crime didn't end there. After the shooting, police said Cook and her boyfriend carjacked another person, although no one was shot in the second case. They had done the same thing twice. They had put more people at risk. They had shown that this wasn't just one terrible mistake. It was a pattern. Police didn't have to search long to find the people responsible. Investigators traced the victim's phone and messages, which led them straight to Ky'Andrea through digital evidence from the app and messages exchanged before the robbery. The evidence was clear. The messages were there. The plan had been documented in her own words. Ky'Andrea Cook was arrested and charged with serious felonies. She was charged with principal to carjacking with a deadly weapon, principal to attempted carjacking with a deadly weapon, and principal to aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Even though she hadn't pulled the trigger, under Florida law, she was just as responsible as the person who did. This is how the law works in cases like this. If you participate in a violent crime and someone gets hurt, you share the responsibility for what happens. It doesn't matter if you didn't fire the gun. If you helped set up the crime, if you were part of the plan, you can be charged as if you committed the violence yourself. Ky'Andrea was assigned a public defender named Frank Scott. According to her testimony, Scott assured her the day before her sentencing that she would not be going to prison, and that at most she would get community control or probation. Cook testified that Scott told her the state was offering community control and that he promised her she was going home. She said he told her around 1:40 in the afternoon that around this time tomorrow you'll be walking out the gate to go home, finish school. So when Ky'Andrea entered that courtroom on June 27, 2017, she was expecting to go home. Cook told her new defense attorney later that she was happy before her court date because Scott had told her she was going home. She had entered a no-contest plea believing that it would result in probation, not prison time. The moment the judge announced the sentence, everything fell apart. Cook's mother dropped to the floor of the courtroom and wailed. Ky'Andrea began crying uncontrollably. She called out for her mother. Cook asked the judge if she could hug her mom, but Foxman denied it, and Cook began blubbering. The judge continued reading the sentence and had police escort the now 18-year-old out of the courtroom, leaving her grieving mother to call out for Jesus repeatedly. The bailiffs had to drag and carry the teenager out of the court. Someone in the courtroom recorded the moment on their phone. Within hours, the video was online. Within days, it had millions of views. People around the world watched as a teenage girl's hope was shattered and her mother collapsed in grief. After the sentencing, Ky'Andrea's family knew something had gone terribly wrong. Two new attorneys, Stephen Robinson and Kelvin Daniels, took over her case on a pro bono basis. They reviewed what had happened and realized there had been a serious miscommunication between Cook and her original public defender. They filed to withdraw her plea deal. Circuit Judge Matt Foxman allowed Cook to withdraw her initial plea and struck down the sentencing, citing a miscommunication between the teenager and assistant public defender Frank Scott. Foxman ruled that he found her plea to be an injustice. The case went back on the docket as if she had never agreed to anything. This was extremely rare. Judges almost never allow defendants to withdraw their pleas after sentencing. But in this case, the evidence was clear. Cook had been promised something that didn't happen, and she had entered her plea based on that false promise. With new lawyers and a new chance, Ky'Andrea faced another decision. She could take her case to trial and risk an even longer sentence if she lost. Or she could negotiate a new plea deal, this time knowing exactly what she was agreeing to. Cook agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in their case against Kendrick Bass, her former boyfriend who had been the shooter. This cooperation would be a major factor in her new sentence. On May 14, 2018, Judge Foxman resentenced her to 11 years in prison and 20 years probation, which would run concurrently with her prison term. She would also have to pay restitution to the victims. The judge and prosecutors said what changed was her cooperation with the state to get the alleged shooter in the carjacking case behind bars. The prosecutor noted, "I'm not sure that there would be a viable prosecution without what you've done." This time there was no crying in the courtroom. Cook, now 19 years old, said in a soft voice, "I apologize for my actions to the victim's family and victims. I am a changed person. I did learn my lesson from all this." Judge Matthew Foxman commended Cook's apparent contrition. He said, "I think you've got good in you and I think you've got potential. Don't lose sight of that." But he also acknowledged the seriousness of what she had done. He said, "That's the one thing that I couldn't get over, really, that knowing how dangerous and deadly it could be. You did basically the same thing again. That was always a difficult part for me." Kendrick Bass, the shooter, was also put on trial and sentenced to 20 years. The viral video had given Ky'Andrea something unexpected. Sympathy. Millions of people had watched her breakdown in that courtroom. They had heard her mother's wails of grief. They had seen a teenager's face when she realized her life was over. Some people believed she deserved the harsh sentence. They pointed out that a 17-year-old boy had been shot and nearly killed. They said that Cook had participated in not just one but 2 carjackings, showing it wasn't just a single mistake. They argued that she had lured innocent people into dangerous situations where they could have been killed. Others saw a teenager who had made terrible choices but who deserved a second chance. They pointed out that she was only 17 when the crimes occurred. They noted that her brain wasn't fully developed, that teenagers make impulsive decisions they wouldn't make as adults. They argued that 20 years was too harsh for someone so young who hadn't pulled the trigger. According to official prison records, Ky'Andrea Cook is serving her sentence at the Homestead Correctional Institution and will be released in December 2027. She will be in her late 20s when she walks out of prison. During her resentencing, Cook said, "When I get out, whenever it be, I want to inspire younger girls and younger youth to not make the same mistake that I made. And I just want to better myself and put this behind me." Whether she can do that remains to be seen. Prison can rehabilitate people, or it can harden them. 11 years is a long time to spend behind bars. She went in as a teenager and will come out as a woman in her late 20s. She will have missed her entire young adult life. But she will get out. Unlike the original 20-year sentence, 11 years gives her a real chance at life after prison. She'd be young enough to start over, to build something, to become the person she says she wants to be. But she will get out. Unlike the original 20-year sentence, 11 years gives her a real chance at life after prison. She'd be young enough to start over, to build something, to become the person she says she wants to be. The case of Ky'Andrea Cook isn't a simple story with a clear moral. It's complicated like most real-life stories are. A teenage girl made terrible choices that could have gotten people killed. One person was shot and nearly died. Others were terrorized and robbed. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the chat and let's meet in the next video.